Hey everybody, and welcome. We are at the foot of majestic Mount Timpanogos here in the tops of the mountains in the west. And my name is Hansen, and I am planning on taking my family from this beautiful valley here out to the east coast, to the Atlantic seaboard, and we are going on a history tour of the Hansen family Providential History Tour 2021. And we invite you to come along. This is kind of a lifelong dream for me and the fulfillment of a lot of years of study and preparation. So we're going to have some fun, and we're going to learn about some really cool things, and we want you to come with us. We're going to post this on Facebook, Providential History Series on Facebook, Providential History Series on Instagram, Providential History Series on YouTube channel. So we're trying to cover all the bases, get your favorite social media outlet that you can follow along with. We're going to go from Savannah, Georgia, all the way to Boston, and this is going to be June 27th through about July 13th, 14th. And so you can follow along any of those days, or all of them, preferably. So providential history. What is providential history? Providence is kind of the old-time word that a lot of the founders used with a capital P to describe God. But it's not really God per se. It's what God does for his people, those who follow him. And so providential history is God's hand in history, helping those who are seeking to do what God sent them here to do. And that is a lot of what we want to look at, is God's hand helping those who are seeking to establish liberty in this land. And I know there's a lot of inconsistency there, but I believe that the founders established a system that we can improve on, and we can do better and make the world a better place. So we're going to look at Revolutionary War sites. We're going to look at Civil War sites, some other things. We'll get to see a World War II ship. We'll get to see some of the places where the English first settled in this land, and we will have just a blast. Come along and enjoy the time with us, and just have a good time. And we invite you to come with us. So, we're going to look at the biblical principles that this country was founded on. We're going to see how they were employed by the founders and those who came after them. We're going to look at actually even specific Bible verses and see how they applied to the history of this country. We are going to look at the concept of covenant. So the founders looked at the covenant that God made with Israel, with his people in the Bible, and they modeled on that their way of setting up a civil society. So take, for instance, the Mayflower Compact, and we'll talk about that when we get to Plymouth, Massachusetts. The Mayflower Compact is in form and content a religious covenant applied to creating a civil society. And you take that all through history, through 150 years of history. Remember, from the Mayflower landing at Plymouth Rock to the Constitution was about 160 something years, actually. So that's a lot of history. And all through that you can see this idea of covenant coming out and being developed all the way through to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which come together to form a complete founding covenant. There are elements in the Declaration of Independence that are not found in the Constitution. There are elements in the Constitution that are not found in the Declaration of Independence. So you put those two together and they form a complete founding covenant, founding a civil society. And that came from the Bible. So we're going to look at that, especially as we get to Philadelphia. We're going to look at that. So we're going to start out in Savannah, Georgia. And why are we starting out in Savannah, Georgia? For a long time now, I've wanted to start in Savannah, Georgia, to tell the story of the Revolutionary War. How what happened in Savannah, Georgia in the 1730s set up the Revolutionary War to come out in a good way in the 1770s and 80s. and clear through to the 90s as the government was established. So what happened in Savannah, Georgia in the 1730s that helped the revolution to come out well? Well, we'll talk about that when we get to Savannah. Then we're going to move on to Charleston, South Carolina, and we'll talk about the beginning of the Civil War. And it's not what you think. We will visit Fort Sumter, but even before that, we'll talk about how a man with a plan came to Charleston in the summer of 1860 to divide the Democratic Party and thus to divide the entire nation. And he almost succeeded in that plan. And we'll talk about that. We'll also get to see the USS Yorktown, which is a World War II aircraft carrier. Not the original Yorktown, which was sunk at Midway, but we'll talk about that, that particular carrier, the original one, as we get there. We'll go from Charleston, South Carolina up to the Virginia Peninsula in Virginia, and we'll visit Jamestown, and we'll visit Yorktown. And we'll see we'll talk about God's hand in the final battle there of the Revolution. We'll talk about some really great points of forgotten history of black patriots, patriots of color in the development of the history of the United States. How specifically a patriot of color helped to end the war at Yorktown. Great history there. We'll talk about a lot of other specific incidents and specific people who helped to bring about this nation as they were fighting for liberty, both black and white, all people working to establish this land as a land of liberty. From Virginia, we're going to go to Maryland. We'll visit the Antietam battle site. We'll see how the bloodiest single day of battle in U.S. history, what kind of impact that had on the nation and on the development of liberty. And we'll visit Gettysburg. Hopefully we'll be in Gettysburg all 3 days. Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg took place on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863. So we will definitely be there in Gettysburg discussing the miraculous events that took place on those days, at least on July 3rd this year. And hopefully we'll be there on the 1st also and the 2nd, so we can talk about the things that happened on each day. I'm really looking forward to that. And then we're going to hit Philadelphia, and we'll be in Philadelphia on July 4th, Independence Day. How cool is that? We'll take a tour of Independence Hall on July 5th. July 4th is a Sunday, so it's not going to be open on Sunday, but we'll be there on the 5th to take that tour. We'll also go to Valley Forge, and we'll get to see the hand of God in history there, how God raised up friends to help fight the battles for us. As Patrick Henry says in his "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death" speech, he almost prophesies that God will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. We'll see also at Trenton and Assunpink Creek and Princeton and then later on at Brooklyn, New York, we'll see how the God of nature raised up the very elements to fight the battles for the Americans in their cause of liberty, because they had done things the right way. They had done things in God's way. God commanded his people that when an enemy came against them to battle, that they raise a standard of peace. The Americans did this not once, not twice, but 3 times they did this, leading up to the Revolutionary War in the 1760s and 1770s. Because they did it the right way, they raised a standard of peace each time, then God helped them in their fight. And we will see that literally come about in, as I said, in Trenton, Brooklyn, New York, Boston, Massachusetts, Yorktown. We will see that play out. We'll go from Philadelphia and Trenton, New Jersey. We'll go to Brooklyn, New York, and then end up in Boston in that area, and Plymouth. and we'll wrap things up there. There's a lot of cool stuff to see and do there and talk about. So I hope that you will join us. This is an invitation for everyone to join us on our trip. This isn't just the Hansen family tour. This is a tour for everyone. We will, as I said, we will have it on Facebook, Providential History Series on Facebook, Providential History Series on Instagram, Providential History Series on YouTube channel. If you would like to support us in this effort and in our, not only this trip, but to make future trips. This is the trip of a lifetime for me, but hopefully it will continue, because we're not going to be able to hit every site that I want to hit on this trip. So we're going to take future trips. So if you'd like to support this, consider going to GoFundMe, Providential History Series, and help us out. We'll also have a Patreon account with some special things in the works for those who subscribe to that. So we're still working on that. But that will be, again, Providential History Series on the Patreon account. So I'm excited to invite you along on this. This isn't going to be something where I have things scripted out. I don't have a professional writer to help me out. This is just me sharing what's in my heart with you and sharing things that I love about history, things that I've discovered in my time of studying history over the last decades that I've been doing this. And the whole point of providential history, right, that's seeing God's hand in history, is so that we can see then God's hand in our lives. And then we can do those things that God sent us here to do to make the world a better place. I think that He's got a mission for each of us as we come to this earth that we can do to help other people. And that's unique to us. Nobody else can do what you can do. So we're going to look at how that applied to people in history and see how they did things that nobody else could do, whether it's George Washington or Benjamin Franklin, whoever. Things that they did that nobody else could do, and then apply that to ourselves. Why are we here? What does God have for us to do today? And so that's going to be a major focus of this trip, is seeing God's hand in history so that we can apply it to our own lives.